Hey guys, I'm John P.
And I'm Callie Lewis. Yesterday we talked about hardware, but once you get used to the hardware, the software is really where your usability comes into play. So let's get into that.
Well, that was the postulate yesterday was...
Oh, using big words now,
That's
are
right.
we?
Yeah, I'm very official. The hardware was not that big of a deal because it's all in the software, right? What do feature lists in the software, do they matter?
Features obviously matter. I think where we're going here is maybe do silly feature lists matter. I think there's some core things that are fundamental, and if they're not there, you don't have a really good mobile experience. But then there's bells and whistles that manufacturers may or may not throw on phones that nobody actually cares about.
There are features and then there are features. There are features that you need, features that you want, and then features I think that manufacturers will put in there just because they came up with something really interesting, but not necessarily gimmicky.
Right.
And then we have manufacturers ripping off manufacturers and saying, well, no, we came up with that first. I don't care who came up with it first. I care who comes up with it better.
Mm-hmm. We have one approach where Apple seems to always wait forever to try new features. They're a generation behind, but they really want to focus and polish and make a cohesive experience. Mm-hmm. Then you have Samsung, who I think at the Samsung event we had 300 million new features, conservative estimate.
And then we had LG come out 2 weeks later and say, we already have it, and it's on this phone now.
But the thing for me is that I like both approaches. I like that Apple is taking a slow, steady, incremental approach and really thinking about the sanity of their device. But someone has to be out there trying all these crazy things in the meantime. So if Samsung fails, that's fine. Some of the stuff will succeed, and then hopefully everybody gets that.
Mm-hmm. Well, give me an example of some of these features that are not necessary or
3D. 3D was a huge one a couple years ago.
3D was ridiculous.
But I think it's great that Android was sort of this test bed because we didn't know if it was going to be gimmicky or not until it came out, and it didn't do well. But this year I can think of two interesting technologies. High amplitude microphones, very practical, so you can record audio concerts and actually have the audio sound good. This is something that is simple, it's not even sexy, but it's just, you can use that every day. And also being able to touch screens with gloves on for the first time, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then you have the truly gimmicky side of not having to actually touch the screen.
Right.
To do it, or to wave your hand in front of
your eyeballs.
the screen, or your eyeballs actually, looking at your face to see if you're still. Actually, I like that one. I think that one's good.
It sounds to me like, based on yesterday's discussion, the hardware doesn't really matter. And now today, it's kind of like the software doesn't really matter. It's the proper mix of the two.
Right.
Well, yeah, the hardware has to be good enough that you don't notice that it's not there.
Great hardware alone isn't going to do much unless it's connected with a great powertrain that equates performance and function.
This is where I think Apple, Palm, and BlackBerry really sort of solidified their legacies, where their ability to meld their software with the hardware. And now you're seeing Android more focused on a usability experience. You're seeing Windows Phone, of course, is always focused on that bit too. But that's now sort of taking the forefront, is how well all that stuff works together.
And when you say Android, this is actually a good segue into that, because when you say Android, there is no one pure Android. By design, it is not built like that. You have Samsung's implementation of Android. You have HTC's, you have LG's, you have Sony's, you have Google's with Google's Nexus line. They are all wildly different with the same code base, but it is
different expressions.
We're actually talking about an open source platform versus a closed proprietary platform.
And there are positives and negatives to both.
Well, are there?
Well,
I don't know.
also,
are there any positives to a closed system?
It's a bit of a canard, that whole argument, because there are some of the best parts of Android are closed. Like all the Google stuff, completely closed. There's no make command for Google Search or for Gmail.
Yep.
You have to get that from Google. And Apple, WebKit's one of the biggest open source projects out there, and that powers an incredible amount of the iPhone. Everyone is powering BlackBerry now. Everyone is using the best of both worlds. Just some are choosing different areas where they go open or they go closed.
I would say there's definitely pros and cons to each one. I mean, for the closed systems, you get a solid user experience, very consistent, and it's designed perfectly. But with Android, the beauty of it is the flexibility. The fact is, Android's always going to be the first to market with these new technologies because Samsung and HTC can take new hardware and implement it before anyone else can. And they're always going to have that advantage. And so it really depends where you want to be, at the cutting edge, or if you want to be sort of conservative but consistent.
Yeah.
Icon launchers, let's move on to those. So future or not?
So that goes back to the Newton. I mean, the Newton had icons on the screens. Palm, the original Palm Pilot
What
had
did you
icons
just
on the
say?
screen. The
Newton?
The Newton. It's been around forever.
You weren't born yet, but
I
we
know
used
what
to
it
have
is, I'm
these devices
joking.
called.
Well, that's the knock, is that people look at iOS and they say, you're using the same paradigm that's been around for 10 years. And on the desktop, that was pretty much true until Windows 8. There was still icon launchers. And now, Android has the home screen approach, tiles, BlackBerry has Peak and all these different paradigms. And the question is, can Apple just keep an app launcher for the next 5 years, or do they have to evolve the way Apple is now the oldest mobile operating system. I cannot believe I live in a world where Apple is the old guy on the block.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Be sure to leave comments below and engage in the conversation because we want to hear from you.
See you later.
Bye.